She thought she could bully a neighborhood into submission. But karma's got a sweet tooth, fake HOAs about to drown in chocolate syrup. The gate she kicked down wasn't just wood. It was the last straw for a fed-up community ready to fight back. The sun was dipping low, painting the cracked pavement of Juniper Street in shades of orange and shadow. Fake HOA, real name, Karen Voss. Though nobody cared, stood in the middle of the alley, her SWAT uniform crisp, the word HOA glaring in white letters across her chest. She'd bought it online, probably for $50, but it gave her the kind of swagger that made people cross the street. For months, she'd terrorized Juniper Street, issuing fake fines, barking orders, and wielding her self-proclaimed authority like a sledgehammer. Tonight, though, the air felt different, electric, heavy, like the moment before a storm breaks. "Step back, all of you," Hoa shouted, her voice sharp but fraying at the edges. Her baton twirled in her hand, a cheap prop meant to intimidate. The crowd didn't budge. They were tired of her threats, her fake badges, her late-night gate-kicking tantrums over untrimmed hedges or kids' bikes left on lawns. Juniper Street wasn't rich, wasn't fancy, but it was home, and Hoa had crossed a line. At the front of the crowd stood Marcus Tate, a wiry community organizer with a mop of graying curls and a face etched with years of fighting for scraps of justice. His shirt clung to his skin, dripping with chocolate syrup, a bizarre weapon from a neighbor's kid who'd had enough and lobbed a bottle during the chaos. Marcus didn't care. The sticky mess felt like a badge of honor. "You're done, Karen," he said, his voice low but carrying the weight of 100 grievances. "You don't own us. You never did." Beside him, Ellie Ruiz, a former cop turned barista, clutched a crumpled sign that read, "HOA, e-counter, fraud." She'd been the first to call Hoa out, digging up the truth about her fake credentials after a neighbor lost their savings to one of Hoa's fines. Ellie's hands shook not from fear, but from the rage of seeing her old badge's honor mocked by this fraud. "You're not a cop," Ellie spat. "You're a con artist in a costume," the crowd murmured, a low growl of agreement. Someone tossed a crumpled soda can that clattered near Hoa's boots. She flinched, her bravado cracking. "I'm protecting this neighborhood," she yelled, but her voice sounded shrill, desperate. "You people don't know order. You need me." Marcus laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "Protecting you kicked in my gate last week because my rosebush was too wild. You fined Mrs. Delgado for her kids' chalk drawings. You're not protecting, you're extorting." The crowd surged forward, their anger a living thing, fed by months of Hoa's petty tyranny. She'd pushed too far, and now karma was knocking. It started 6 months ago, when Karen Voss moved to Juniper Street. Nobody knew much about her, just that she'd arrived with a truck full of furniture and an attitude bigger than the block. She called herself HOA, claiming she was the new head of a homeowners association nobody had voted for. At first, people laughed it off. An HOA in a working-class neighborhood like Juniper, it sounded like a bad joke. But then the notices started appearing handwritten, taped to doors, demanding payment for violations like unapproved mailbox color or excessive garden gnomes. When people ignored her, Hoa escalated. She'd bang on doors at midnight, citing fake bylaws. She'd leave threatening voicemails, her voice dripping with smug authority. And then came the gate-kicking, literal and metaphorical, when she started breaking into yards to enforce compliance. Marcus had been the first to push back. He'd lived on Juniper for 20 years, raised his daughter here, buried his wife here. He wasn't about to let some wannabe dictator ruin his home. He organized meetings, rallied neighbors, and dug into Hoa's past. What he found was a trail of scams, fake charities, forged documents, even a brief stint as a psychic consultant. Karen Voss wasn't just a bully, she was a professional leech. Ellie joined the fight after Hoa targeted her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Delgado, The old woman had paid $500 to avoid eviction, only to learn it was a lie. Ellie, who'd left the police force after seeing too much corruption, couldn't stomach the abuse. She started asking questions, cross-referencing records, and found that HOA's SWAT uniform was a costume from a discount website. No badge, no authority, just a woman playing dress-up with other people's fear. The neighborhood's anger simmered until it boiled over that night in the alley. It wasn't planned. Not really. It started with a kid's birthday party balloons, music, a rare moment of joy on Juniper Street. HOA had stormed in, claiming the noise violated her rules. When Marcus told her to leave, she kicked his gate off its hinges, splintering the wood. That's when the kid with the chocolate syrup acted on impulse, dousing her. The crowd gathered, phones out, recording every second. Social media exploded. Your fake Ho cop trended within hours. Now, in the alley, Ho was cornered. Her uniform, once her armor, felt like a target. The crowd's chants grew louder. Fraud, fraud. A woman in the back held up a sign. Karma's sweet Marcus stepped closer, his syrup-soaked shoes squelching. You thought you could scare us into submission, he said, but this is our home. You're the one who's leaving. Hoa's eyes darted, searching for an escape. She raised her baton, but her hand trembled. I'll sue you all, she screamed. I have rights. The crowd laughed, a raw, cathartic sound. Ellie stepped forward, her voice steady. You don't get to hide behind a fake badge anymore. The truth's out. Karen, you're done. For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then a teenager in the crowd lobbed another bottle of syrup, splattering HOA's boots. The crowd roared, a mix of triumph and rage. HOA stumbled back, her face pale. She wasn't just facing a neighborhood, she was facing the consequences of her own lies. The internet didn't help. Clips of the gate kicking, the syrup throwing, the confrontation went viral. X was a firestorm of memes and hot takes. Fake HOA cop gets sticky. Just as one post read, with 10,000 likes. Another showed HOA's furious face next to a cartoon of a syrup bottle, captioned, Karma's got flavor. But beneath the humor was real anger. People shared stories of their own run-ins with petty tyrants, bosses, landlords, bureaucrats. HOA became a symbol, a lightning rod for a world tired of frauds in power. Marcus didn't care about the memes. He cared about his neighbors. Mrs. Delgado, who'd cried herself to sleep over the money she'd lost. The kids who were scared to play outside. The families who felt powerless. He looked at HOA, now backed against a dumpster, and felt no pity, only resolve. You're not the law, he said. You're just a bully who got caught. Ellie, though, felt a flicker of something else. She'd seen people like HOA before, small, desperate, building empires out of lies to feel big. Part of her wanted to understand why. But then she remembered Mrs. Delgado's tears and the flicker died. Turn yourself in, Ellie said, or we'll do it for you. HOA's bravado crumbled. She dropped the baton, her shoulders slumping. The crowd didn't cheer, they just watched. A silent jury. For the first time, Karen Voss looked small. Not a cop, not a tyrant, just a woman who'd gambled on fear and lost. The next morning, Juniper Street woke to a different kind of energy. The splintered gate was still there, but someone had hung a sign on it, Juniper Strong. Neighbors gathered, not to fight, but to clean up. They swept the alley, shared coffee, laughed about the syrup. Marcus and Ellie stood side by side, watching the sunrise. Think she'll come back, Ellie asked. Marcus shook his head. She's gone, but we're still here. And that, he knew, was what mattered. The morning after the alley showdown, Juniper Street buzzed with a strange mix of relief and defiance. The air still smelled faintly of chocolate syrup, a sticky reminder of the night before. Karen Voss, the self-proclaimed fake HOA, had slunk away under the weight of the crowd's anger. her SWAT uniform stained and her authority shattered. But the neighborhood wasn't done with her or the mess she'd left behind. Marcus Tate stood by his broken gate, a hammer in one hand and a plank of wood in the other. The gate wasn't just a casualty of HOA's tantrum. It was a symbol of everything she tried to break. Neighbors stopped by, offering nails, tool, or just a nod of solidarity. Mrs. Delgado, her eyes still puffy from weeks of worry, brought him a thermos of coffee. "You stood up for us, Marcus," she said, her voice soft but steady. "I didn't think anyone would." Marcus gave her a tired smile. "We all did. Mrs. D. You're the one who kept us fighting." He meant it. Her quiet courage handing over her savings to HOA out of fear, then admitting it to the neighborhood had sparked the rebellion. It wasn't just about gates or fines anymore. It was about dignity. Across the street, Ellie Ruiz was already at work, her laptop open on a rickety folding table outside her apartment. She was combing through X, tracking the wildfire spread of not her fake HOCOP. The hashtag had exploded overnight, with thousands of posts dissecting Karen's scams. Some were vicious memes of her syrup-soaked uniform captioned "sticky situations," but others were deeper, sharing stories of similar frauds in other towns. Ellie's jaw tightened as she read about a fake HOA in Ohio that had swindled retirees out of thousands. She wasn't original, Ellie muttered, just loud. The viral storm brought reporters to Juniper Street by noon. A local news van parked crookedly on the curb, its crew filming Marcus as he nailed his gate back together. A young reporter, her hair too perfect for the humid morning, shoved a microphone in his face. "Mr. Tate, how does it feel to take down a fraud like Karen Voss?" Marcus paused, wiping sweat from his brow. "Feels like we're just getting started," he said. "She's gone, but the damage isn't. We're fixing more than gates here." The reporter nodded, scribbling notes. But Marcus wasn't interested in fame. He wanted his neighborhood back. By afternoon, the story had gone national. Cable news ran grainy phone footage of the alley confrontation, with pundits debating everything from HOA overreach to vigilante justice. One talking head called the syrup throwing a juvenile stunt. Another called it a poetic reckoning. Marcus didn't watch. He was too busy helping Mrs. Delgado file a police report to recover her $500. Ellie, meanwhile, was coordinating with a lawyer friend to build a case against Karen. The woman might have fled, but she wasn't untouchable. Karen, it turned out, hadn't gone far. She'd holed up in a cheap motel 2 towns over, her phone buzzing with notifications she didn't dare open. Her X account, once a megaphone for her fake HOA decrees, was now a graveyard of deleted posts and blocked users. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her stained uniform crumpled in the corner. For the first time in years, Karen felt the weight of her own choices. She'd always justified her scams. People were too weak, too gullible, she told herself. They needed someone to take charge. But Juniper Street hadn't bent. They'd fought back, and the world was watching. Back on Juniper, the neighborhood was changing. The confrontation had lit a spark, and people who'd barely spoken in years were now organizing. A block party was planned for the weekend, not to celebrate HOA's downfall, but to rebuild trust. Kids drew chalk murals on the sidewalks, defiantly bright after HOA's crackdown on unauthorized art. Someone hung a banner across the street, "Juniper Stronger." Ellie, ever practical, set up a crowdfunding page to help Mrs. Delgado and others scammed by HOA. By evening, it had raised $2,000, but not everyone was ready to move on. Some neighbors, like old Mr. Callahan, were still angry. "She should be in jail," he grumbled, leaning on his cane at the community meeting that night. "What's to stop her from doing this somewhere else?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Ellie stood up, her voice calm but firm. "She's not getting away with it. We've got evidence receipts, voicemails, fake documents. The police are involved now." But we need to focus on us, too. We let her get this far because we didn't talk to each other. That's gotta change. Marcus nodded from the back, his arms crossed. She thrived on our silence, he said. No more. The room fell quiet, the weight of his words sinking in. HOA's reign had exposed cracks in Juniper Street, not just in gates, but in trust, in community. Fixing those would take more than hammers and nails. The next day, a tip came through on X. Karen had been spotted trying to sell her HOA services in a neighboring city. The post included a blurry photo of her in a new uniform, this time with property manager embroidered on it. Ellie's stomach churned. She's not stopping, she told Marcus over coffee. She's just moving the con somewhere else. Marcus set his mug down hard. Then we stop her. Again. They rallied a small group, Mrs. Delgado, a tech-savvy teenager named Jaden, and a few others, and got to work. Jaden hacked together a quick website, Beware Fake HOA, linking to articles and videos about Karen's scams. Ellie reached out to her old police contacts, sharing the new tip. Marcus, meanwhile, posted on X, warning other neighborhoods she's a fraud. Don't let her in. The response was overwhelming. People from across the country shared their own stories, fake inspectors, sham landlords, even a neighborhood safety czar who'd turned out to be a grifter. Karen's face, now infamous, became a rallying cry. Stop Fake HOA trended alongside Mashar Fake Ho Cop, with strangers donating to Juniper's crowdfunding efforts. A woman in Texas sent $100 with a note for Mrs. Delgado. Keep fighting. Karen's new scheme didn't last long. The neighboring city's residents, tipped off by Juniper's campaign, confronted her at a town hall. She tried to bluster her way through, but the crowd was ready. Someone held up a phone playing the syrup video, and the room erupted in laughter. Karen fled, her new uniform as useless as the last. Back on Juniper, the block party was a triumph. Tables lined the street, piled with food tacos, lumpia, Mrs. Delgado's famous flan. Kids ran wild, their laughter louder than ever. Marcus and Ellie sat on a curb, watching Jaden teach a group of younger kids how to code a simple game. This is what she couldn't take, Ellie said, gesturing to the crowd. This, Marcus nodded, but his eyes were distant. It's not over, though. People like her, they don't stop unless you make them. He was right. Karen's scams were just one symptom of a bigger problem. Power-hungry frauds preying on the vulnerable. But Juniper Street had learned something. They'd learned to fight together. Weeks later, Karen was arrested not for the gate, not for the syrup, but for fraud and extortion. The evidence Ellie and Marcus had gathered, combined with tips from other communities, was enough to build a case. At her hearing, Karen sat silent, her bravado gone. The judge read out the charges: dozens of victims, thousands of dollars stolen. Juniper Street wasn't there. They didn't need to be. They'd already won. The neighborhood kept growing stronger. Mrs. Delgado started a gardening club, turning her 2 wild rose bush into a community project. Jaden's website became a resource for other towns, warning them about scams. Ellie went back to school, studying law to fight for people like her neighbors. Marcus fixed his gate, but left one splintered board as a reminder: never let a bully win. The world moved on, but Juniper Street didn't forget. They'd faced down a fraud, rebuilt their home, and found their voice. And when the next threat came, because it always would, they'd be ready.